I'm gonna make a couple
All
little
right,
snarky.
guys. We are uh we are live here for the Strictly Sports podcast. Oh, we sorry a little bit late today, but had some prior obligations, so we are here live though, and we're gonna go through some March Madness and some NFL free agency. We did not want to just miss out on the chance to talk about some of the upsets as well as some of the latest from the NFL, because there have been some pretty good moves, and we've seen a lot of guys finally get some contracts and season. So we're gonna start with the March Madness. Kicking into it, honestly, to me, I did watch a little bit of the games in the second round. I didn't watch much of the first round, but um, I have been tracking a lot of the upsets, and there have been quite a few. I feel like this season, maybe it's because of COVID and obviously all that stuff, but we had a forfeit, and then we had a couple other pretty big upsets, and one Cinderella team that still kind of looks to be pushing forward, Sweet 16 and Oral Roberts. But let's jump right into it. So, Trav, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, first, I'd like to apologize for that rocky intro. Me butting in on Juddy. A certain podcast member left us out in the cold tonight, so
This is
I was
true.
making it known that I was gonna make a couple digs at him, and so here's the first of maybe a few today. I think you guys can all figure out which podcast member isn't on with us tonight. So yeah, that's all that was there. We're all getting a little getting our bearings here, as Will Ferrell would say, or excuse me, as Owen Wilson would say,
Yeah.
and so that's all that was there. But yeah, my takeaway from March Madness, the first I guess you call it weekend, even though it was a weekend plus a weekday this year, was the amount of upsets. I felt like there were a lot of higher upsets. Obviously, 12 and below, usually you see a lot of those, but you had two 13s win, a 14 and a 15. That seemed like a lot. I don't know what the numbers say on that year to year, but I don't think you usually get 4 13 and below seeds getting through. So I thought it was a pretty good first couple days. To me, that's the tournament. The first 2 days to me are the best games to see
It's where
this
the
year.
kind of craziness is with all the
Yeah, it's
games at the
just
same
crazy. It's
time.
one game after another. You're just flipping to catch every ending, all at least all the games that are ending close. And so I really enjoyed watching those and seeing the upsets. And then the bigger takeaway for me was how bad the Big Ten fared. Everyone talked about how the Big Ten was clear cut the best conference this year, and also Big 12, them two combined, but mainly the Big Ten. And they come out and they just get one upset after another from higher seeded teams taking them down. The Pac-12, I think is 9-1 so far. So they're kind of looking like, I mean, I'm not saying the Big Ten wasn't the best conference because clearly all year they showed they were. So they either were overrated though as a conference or they just played bad. One of the two. So surprising at how many Big Ten teams went down so early, mainly the first round, but then also some in the second round to some upsets. And then the amount of upsets in general was fun to watch.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought there were some really good games, even the ones that weren't necessarily big upsets, but like right out of the gates for me, Florida, Virginia Tech, that was a really good game. Like to start off the tournament, like went to overtime. Like it was just really competitive. It was a really good game. And there was a couple teams, like Travis said, just upsets. But yeah, teams that you thought like, man, you really had a chance. And even some teams that were not necessarily favorites, but were the underdogs that really had chances. And then just at the end of the game, it sort of went the other team's way and they just kind of couldn't hold on. Rutgers in the second round had that chance. They were right there at the end, and then they just couldn't. I'm like, dude,
They had
it. You choked it away.
Yeah.
Completely choked it away. UVA. I mean, like in their first round game, it was just
Are we
like,
surprised?
I mean, no, because the lack of offensive always is the problem. They can play great defense, but then these teams hang around because they're not going to blow them out. And like we talked about, and then just 5 minutes to go, that team took the lead, and UVA just couldn't score buckets.
Yeah, I didn't fill a bracket out this year, but the one upset I would have gone with would have been Ohio over Virginia, because outside of the one tournament that Virginia won, and they won every one of those games, especially some early ones, close games that they came back in at the end. So they could have easily been eliminated in the first or second round in that run where they won the title. And then even winning in the finals when they did, had a late comeback against Texas Tech. Texas Tech blew that final against them. That was their national championship to have. And so other than that run where I would say there's a little bit of luck involved in that one, they've gone out early in all these years where they're a top seed since Tony Bennett's gone there. And kudos to Tony Bennett for what he's done with that program in the last 5 or 7 years. It's not a criticism of him at all. He's
right, and then you're in the ACC, which has perennial great teams. Like,
yeah, you don't typically see that. And he comes in and he makes them like a 1 seed every year for like the better part of the last 5 years. And it's like, wow. But when they get in the tournament, they don't live up to it. And so, it's part of it's the style of play. They play a slow brand, so you're always going to be a close game, and it's just tough to win those. So there's going to be
eventually going to run. Yeah, you're going to run into a hot team.
13 seed, they're going to have a chance to get upset because it's going to be probably a 2 or 3 possession game late in the game, one way or the other. And so you're going to always have that real chance, as opposed to other 1 through 3 seeds can just run you out of the gym. Virginia doesn't run you out of any gym typically. So yeah, I wasn't surprised at all that Ohio took them down. that would have been one I picked, but the other ones were more surprising to me, like Oral Roberts over Ohio State.
Yep.
Just seeing the Big Ten teams just go down. I mean, I watched the second round game. I watched,
and then Florida too. Oral Roberts taking down Florida.
Yeah,
that was a team that people thought would make a run.
Oral Roberts, man, they look like they look like a lot more than a 15 seed. They look like a solid 12, 11 or 12 easy. And I'll tell you another team that impressed me: Loyola Chicago.
Yeah, I was going to say,
second time
beating Illinois. I was probably the most shocked about that upset.
Look, they went to the Final Four. They went to the Final Four, and this team is better than that team.
Yeah,
clearly, because they're an 8 seed. They were an 11 when they went to the Final Four, a couple years ago. They're an 8 seed, and I remember Jay Billis was talking about when the brackets came out. He's like, whoever plays them, he's like, when they play Illinois in the second round. I mean, he was talking about them playing Georgia Tech and that being a great game. But if they could get by, like they'd be a tough out and this and that. And I mean, I watched most of that Illinois Loyola game thinking like, all right, whatever. It's the 12 o'clock game. It's the only one on. It was the first game on Sunday of the second round. And I'm like, all right, I don't know that I didn't really respect or know much about Loyola. So I'm like, all right, Illinois is solid. Illinois is going to, they should take them. And then it's like, they not only beat Illinois, they dominated them basically the whole game. They stifled them defensively. Illinois couldn't do anything on offense because of the defense they played. And they just beat them start to finish. So I mean, I'm looking at them and I'm like, I wouldn't stun me if they, as an 8 seed, go to the Final Four again this year. So that's crazy.
There's some crazy ones. To me, the Illinois loss was a pretty big one, but Oregon State actually they upset Tennessee in the first round, which I did.
Yeah, that was kind of big.
I did one of those little mock brackets for a group of friends of mine, and I did one where it was like allow ESPN projections to randomly pick your bracket. And one of mine had Tennessee winning it all. So that bracket was immediately shot when they lost that game. And then I know we talked about last week how Oklahoma State actually might be a team, and they beat them. And so now they're
they beat. I was going to say, they also took Oklahoma State down, which, again, a couple of teams that they had. I mean, Big Ten was ranked highest, and then it was the Big 12, which was really strong this year. And then they a couple of their good teams go down early. So.
Yeah, so like that one. So like the second round, that was one of the games that I saw that was a good game was Syracuse, West Virginia. And I say Syracuse like sneaky, but you wouldn't think sneaky for that team. They are an 11 seed, but Jim Boeheim, I mean, that's a program that's been a really good program for a long time. But they've looked very good.
The thing about Syracuse is that whenever they're highly ranked, they don't really do well. But when they're not highly ranked, they move through the bracket pretty nicely. So I actually really like them in the Sweet 16 as that team that's like, an underdog type team as well.
And Boeheim's kid, man, he can shoot. He can knock down some threes. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a big game. That was a good game.
Yeah, it was.
West Virginia made something of it late, but Syracuse kind of held control most of it.
Yeah, they just couldn't quite do enough they couldn't stop him. I mean, they couldn't stop the threes.
Where are y'all at?
That was a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at it from that perspective, it was a fun first 4 days. But where are you guys at, like with teams moving forward? Who do you like? I mean, Gonzaga's looked really good. I still feel like maybe they're making themselves even more of a favorite than all of us kind of gave them credit for. But I don't know who else out there that you like. But I mean, I'm still looking at them thinking they might be the team.
Well, the only team left from the Big Ten is Michigan now. They're holding strong. They pulled it out. That was a closer game than I thought it was going to be in the second round. But other than that, I mean, for me, I'm looking at the bracket right now, and to me, a matchup at least for the Sweet 16 that I'm really excited to watch is going to be the Loyola game versus Oregon State. Two teams that kind of people might not have expected to be there, going at it for a Elite 8 spot. But I don't know. I mean, like you said, Gonzaga, this might be the year that they could make the run just because of the way the brackets fall already at this point.
Yeah, I haven't looked too much at the brackets and like what matchups are laying out there, but like I just talked about Syracuse, I'm kind of interested to see if they, after two pretty good games here in the first, against decent opponents. I can't remember who exactly they played in the first round, a 6 seed, but beating a 3 seed West Virginia, San Diego State. Okay. But I'm interested to see, like Juddy, you said, usually when they do go deeper in the tournament, they're not as high of a seed. So yeah, we'll see what happens with them as the 11 seed.
Well, here's the thing, in the Midwest Regional, you have Loyola versus Oregon State, and then Houston and Syracuse. So one of those, if Houston doesn't win the next two games, you're gonna have either an 8, 12, or an 11 seed in the Final Four. Again, for what seems like almost every year, there's one of those teams in double digits that finds a way to make it to the Final Four. But
I think one of those higher seeds are getting in over Houston.
Yeah, you don't like Houston that much.
I don't like Houston enough. I really like Loyola. Are you saying they were one of those in that bracket?
Yeah, it's Loyola,
Houston,
Oregon
Syracuse.
State, and then Houston, Syracuse in that bracket.
Honestly, right now, if I had to pick, who's Loyola play?
Oregon State.
Oregon State.
Oh, Loyola's winning that for sure.
I'm
picking Loyola out of that bracket. I'm taking Loyola hands down as getting through that bracket.
I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna hold the receipts on that next time for next show that we do.
All right.
We got the video evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be some really good matchups. I mean, just looking at it, I mean, Oral Roberts is in a pretty tough one. They got Villanova, Baylor, and Arkansas in their seed.
Pretty tough run.
And then really the most chalk region there is the East region. Michigan plays Florida State, and then Alabama plays UCLA. So UCLA is the only team in that region that is an upset. It was a chalk. So it's gonna be really good. I don't know. I mean, if we're taking our Sweet 16 picks, obviously you reseed it. Who do you guys like to win it all at this point?
I think I'm still going to stick with Gonzaga for right now.
Zags.
Okay.
I would say Michigan, but depending on Livers, the kid Isaiah Livers, who's been a starter he started every game for them, and then he went out in the right before the Big Ten tournament. If he comes back and they can get reintegrated back to normal, and he's like 100%, then I would maybe
give them
switch my pick to
chance.
Michigan and take them. But as of now, I'd say the Zags.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's laid out and the way that things have kind of gone from the bracket thus far, I think it really leans itself towards those top seeds if they can get their game going. And
Baylor, don't sleep on Baylor. Baylor didn't get upset, right?
No, they're still in it.
Yeah, don't sleep on Baylor either. They'd be the other one.
They got to play Villanova.
They're obvious. They're all one
seed.
seed.
So
they're all one seed. So I'm not like they're not nothing. I'm not I'm not going out on a limb here at all.
Let's go on the opposite end of that. If you weren't picking a 1 seed, who do you like from what's left? Because there's really not much.
Trav's gonna say Loyola.
I'm gonna have to double down here. I'm gonna have to double down on my Loyola guys, man. Sister Jean, man. Sister Jean. There's something about her.
Yeah.
Aggie,
I mean,
yeah,
look, once you're in the Final Four, anything can happen. So I realistically would pick Loyola out of that bracket. So at that point, they'd be there against, I don't know who's on that side of it, who they play, but they'd have every chance to get there. So, I mean, why can't they? But I mean, I would still favor, a fully healthy Michigan and the Zags over them. So
Aggie, what about you?
I don't know. What seed is Houston?
Houston's a 2 seed. So it's kind of
I'll go Houston, I guess. But I
think for me, don't sleep on Villanova. They're a 5 seed. They got to play Baylor, though. But if they can get past Baylor, I think they have a real shot to get it done.
Yeah, they had an injury, too. They were a good team that people like, but then I don't know who the kid was that got hurt, but they had a bad injury that people were down on them like, nah, I don't expect them. But, I mean, hey, who knows? But Baylor, that's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough match.
It should be crazy. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, because whoever
that region's tough.
It is a tough region, but should be good. Some exciting games. Hopefully, if nothing else, we get exciting games, because I know usually, like you said, most of the most exciting games early on. But we're going to shift gears to the NFL free agency. So a few things have happened since we last spoke last week. But one of them being Juju getting signed to a 1-year deal for 8 years, or for $8 million for 1 year, coming back to play with Big Ben and turning down offers, what seemed like were higher offers for the Ravens and for the Chiefs.
Don't tell Mark Madden that.
I know, but what do you guys think about what's taken place so far in free agency? Has anything really surprised you?
I mean, I don't think there's been anything that's been like a real crazy, oh man, I can't believe that happened kind of a thing. I think it's interesting to see some of the quarterbacks shuffling, more backup roles. Like we talked about a little bit, Trubisky going to the Bills as a backup on a 1-year deal. Like just seeing how some of these guys who have been kind of starters or kind of on the bubble as starters in the last few years now getting kind of shuffled to where you can kind of tell, okay, yep, they've kind of been delegated as you're going to be a backup, at least for the time being. I saw Joe Flacco sign with Philly either today or yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know what how much? 1-year deal
with $3 million of incentives. So I'm wondering if it's.
So I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested to see if that's a competition.
Is it to push Jalen? Is it to?
It's just that's pure backup.
Yeah.
I would.
Trav's got no respect for Flacco,
dude. At this point, nobody At this point, nobody respects Flacco. I mean, he's nothing but a backup at this point in his career. You can argue all day. I mean, some people feel pretty strongly about what he was as a starter 5 or 6 years ago, winning a Super Bowl and all that. You can argue that point, but I don't think anybody thinks that he's the guy that's going to be a starter. And I don't even think – I still expect them to maybe draft or look for the quarterback of the future, because I don't know if they're sold on Jalen. And then those two, that guy would maybe push Jalen. But Flacco's just there as if we don't draft a guy and we can't find anything better, at least we have a backup now. We have a guy who can literally start an NFL game with some experience.
Which kind of makes me think the Jets might be looking to go with Sam Darnold, keep him as a starter. I don't know.
Yeah,
from everything I had heard, they were at least going to give him one more year, maybe, because they changed coaches, right? Their coach got fired, right?
I don't know. I think it's 50-50 right now on whether they draft, because they got the number 2 pick, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's definitely a good spot. So.
You either take Zach Wilson or whichever quarterback you like, possibly if you like
Justin
one of the
Fields.
other kids. Justin Fields ahead of him. It probably would be Fields if it wasn't Zach Wilson. To me, though, if you were going to do that, trade Sam Darnold.
That's my thought. You can
like,
get some capital for him.
I mean, send him to the Bears. You know, like send him somewhere where they're like, you know, they need somebody, because I still think Darnold has a chance to be a good pro, like a good pro. Like I don't necessarily mean
Who
elite.
did the Bears sign? Who did the Bears just sign?
The
Bears. Andy Dalton.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, they got Andy Dalton.
Yeah, they were talking about the jokes were like
I think the one that I think of from a quarterback standpoint, yeah.
So, people like here's my thing.
Because his hair
people
color
give the Bears such a hard time about like
they do.
Man, they suck. Like the joke was like, oh great, they signed a quarterback that matches their uniform numbers, you know, and it was like with the hair color matches their uniform numbers, and so it's like they're all like, you know, making the Bears the punching bag, and I'm like, you can't just go get any quarterback you want. Like it can't be like, you know, like let's just go get Deshaun. Like, yeah, they'll give him to us if we trade him. Like, no.
Well, you know, now granted, they botched it in the draft though.
The scuttle, right?
They had their chance to actually go get
right. Yes, and that's fine. And if you want to bury them for like everything they've done leading up to this and picking Trubisky over Watson and all that stuff, that's fine. But okay, but here they are. They messed it up. But now people like bury them for the moves they're making. I actually thought Andy Dalton was a decent signing because for them right now, they have no better options.
Right.
They're not.
He's better than Trubisky.
They're not right. He's better than Trubisky, and they're not picking high enough to get a good quarterback. From all I heard, they did everything they could to at least try the whole Russell Wilson thing, and they threw some things at him. But Seattle wasn't going to trade Russell Wilson this year, and I don't think they're going to trade him ever. You know, for quite a few years, if ever. So. To me, it's just not that easy. It's just like people give the Steelers a hard time, like move on from Ben and get somebody better. It's like, well, we still win. The thing is, we win, so we can't draft high. And Mason Rudolph is the best option right now.
That's the thing about the Bears too. Is the Bears are not the worst team in the league. They have a great defense.
They're very competitive.
They're a really good quarterback away from being a contender.
Right. But it's not that easy to just go get that quarterback.
Nope.
You know, and so that's why I want people to shut up about. But for me, you know, going into what I kind of think of it as far as what's happened since we talked last on the show last week. We talked about the bigger stuff that happened in the first days, but one thing we alluded to was that the receiving market was very slow and it hadn't played out yet, right? You had Juju, you had Kenny Golladay, you had Will Fuller, and you had Curtis Samuel as kind of the consensus top 4 guys that were still out there. Well, one by one, they started to fall. Curtis Samuel got a decent deal. He got a multi-year, like a 3 for 35 type of deal. Yeah. And then Juju went a little after that. He got his 1 year. And I know there was a lot of talk about Juju. You know, like I love him for what he did. I know, you know, there was also some stuff I read about, well, he didn't really turn down that much money. Look, apparently he only had 1 year. You know, I heard the whole Philly thing.
He did have a multi-offer from Philly.
Well, but there was some people were saying that wasn't necessarily the case, but whether it was or it wasn't, it basically the meat of the market for Juju was 1 year, right? Yeah. So he didn't turn down multi-years and take a 1 year less. But he did take, for that 1 year, like, as far as incentives plus base salary, he took significantly less than what he could have done to go to Baltimore, no less.
Listen, I respect the heck out of that guy for taking less money to not play with Baltimore, but even more so, if I was Juju, I cannot sit here and tell you guys, as much as I love the Steelers, that I would turn down a chance to play with Patrick Mahomes, even for 1 year, even at equal money for the Steelers.
Right. So, and it was apparently it was one more million base salary wise, and a couple of incentive. A couple million incentive wise that he could have got to go there and obviously go with the team that's much, you know, or I don't know, much higher, significantly higher, however you want to word it. They're significantly higher in the pecking order in the NFL and the AFC as far as winning. So, I mean, as a Steeler fan, obviously a lot of respect, but I also think for Juju, it was pretty clear after 3 or 4 days, the market was slow. He wasn't going to get the $15 million a year for 4 years that he wanted and that he thought he deserved. Yeah. So I think it makes a lot of sense for him. Take a 1 year deal with Pittsburgh or whoever. It could have been with whoever, but take the 1 year deal and let the salary cap go back to normal or at least closer to normal next year and then go for the multi-year deal. Because Juju's still, 24 right now?
Yeah, and here's the thing.
So next year he's 25. He's still young enough to get that big deal and then go that route. But I'll say this about to close up the wide receiver market. They all kind of got, you know, a little less than what they all thought it deserves. But the way I'm looking at it, Kenny Golladay gets 4 years at $72 million. Idiots. What the heck are the Giants doing? The Giants got absolutely desperate by going with Kenny Golladay for 72. I'll take Juju on equal money, but we got Juju for $8 million, and they're paying Kenny Golladay, who's not any better to me than Juju, for $18 million on 4 years. And then they go on the other side.
Adoree Jackson,
and they get Adoree Jackson for what was it?
3
13 a year?
Yeah, for 3 years for $39 million. Yeah.
39. Yeah, 39. Yeah,
13 million a year.
Like a guy who has been kind of a bust as far as how high he was drafted. And you go give him 3 years, 39. To me, it looked like the Giants got desperate when they hadn't signed anybody in the first 3 or 4 days of free agency and just was like, panic time. We need to do something. We need to like be competitive this year. And they just made 2 terrible signings to me as far as, not that I dislike Kenny Galladay, but I dislike what they're paying him in relation to what the other receivers got that he's not much better than, or maybe even any better than. Will Fuller didn't get anywhere near Kenny Galladay money either. And I think Will Fuller is probably better than Galladay.
I do, and I respect Juju even more because I was watching, he was streaming the other day, and everybody was like, oh, you should have taken the deal with blah, blah, blah. You should have taken this. You should have blah, blah, blah. And he's like, listen, the bottom line is like, I believe in loyalty. He said, and the money's going to come. He said, I'm a guy that has a brand outside of football. He said, I'm young. I'm early in my career. He said, the market's going to expand. He's like, to me, loyalty and coming back to a team in a city that I've grown to love and that kind of gave me my first shot means more to me than like trying to go after and chase money for a team that's going to not compete.
Yeah, but I'll say this though, just to because I do respect him for it, because he could have, most guys, even for 1 year to make like 2 to 4 more million will go. Okay, but if Juju would have got 4 for 16, he was gone.
For sure.
So I don't want to make him a saint and say, because he would have signed that deal earlier. But if all things were close, which they got pretty close, and that's why he stayed. So it was a little bit of both. I can't make him a saint.
I will say this: it's crazy. It's crazy that you and me, Trav, talked about it in the offseason, like early. Like, the only way we're going to be able to sign him is if we could maybe get him for a 1 year, like 12 million or something, because he's probably going to get 15. But sure enough, the market fell through the roof.
And that's a great deal for the Steelers.
Huge deal.
Like we talked about how much the Patriots were paying for those guys that they got. Yep. So like to get him at 8, you're like, wow, they definitely.
I mean, they paid
more.
It was
because the Patriots were spending early though, too.
Nelson Aguilar. What was Nelson Aguilar's deal?
11?
It was 2 years.
11 million each, I think.
One of those guys was getting 13 million a year. One of those guys.
It was either 11 or 13 a year for Aguilar. I think it was 11. And Nelson Aguilar is nowhere near to me what Juju is. So
right. Who was the other guy they got? That was a little bit better than that, but he was getting paid like 13 or something like that. I can't remember who the other receiver is that the Patriots signed.
Better receivers.
Oh, they got Kendrick Bourne.
Bourne from San Fran.
But he didn't make 13. He's making less than he was making less than Nelson Aguilar. But Aguilar got like I think Aguilar got 2 for 26.
Yeah.
I think he got 2 years, 13 million.
Unlike Aguilar.
And we're paying Juju 8.
Yeah.
So
I'll take it.
I'll take that all day.
When he starts dropping balls in New England, we'll see what happens.
He'll get benched for the quickness. But other than the receivers, were there any more additional signings that you guys were maybe shocked by, or things that you are looking forward to see kind of how they play out when the season comes up?
No, I'm interested to see Ryan Fitzpatrick in Washington though, and see kind of just that division. Like, as a Cowboy fan, I can tell you that division is always up for grabs, man. It doesn't belong to anybody. It shuffles around every year. You never know. Like the Giants, I mean, they spent a lot of money, but maybe that's going to pay off. Like, I mean, they have. Somewhat upgraded their roster.
Speaking of this isn't necessarily free agency talk, but while we're on the NFC East talk of free agency, there's been a lot of talk about, I've seen on recently about who's the favorite in the NFC East. And a lot of people are going like, with like a lot of it was based on the Fitzpatrick signing, but also some other signings that they made. And the fact that they won the division last year, they have a great defense returning. That people are thinking like, Dallas, I mean,
they have a good defense too.
Washington football team, they still don't have a name, morons, but that they're the favorite in the East. And a lot of people are like, how can you say that? The Cowboys got Dak. They got the best quarterback. They're the favorite. To me, if I'm picking it right now, I'm picking Washington football team.
I don't blame
it's
you.
Not even that close. Not that
they have the best. They have the best defense. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You got to have a defense. You got to have at least a decent defense.
I mean, dude,
they have a pretty good defense.
With Alex Smith on one leg and some of Dwayne Haskins and some of Allen in a playoff game of Heineke, you saw what they were then. So Fitzpatrick isn't probably an upgrade from all those guys, honestly.
Yeah.
So even with that quarterback situation, they won the division. So now that they got Fitzpatrick, who I think probably will start for them, I think they're definitely, and none of the other teams to me have gotten better. Dallas has not gotten any better. Okay. No. They were 1-3 with Dak. Just because they're getting Dak back doesn't make them better. Okay.
Agree.
Giants are the Giants. Don't like their signings. Don't think they're going to be much better. And then the Eagles are going to be a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I
hope Jalen Hurts does well, but I just don't think that I don't think that they're gonna.
So, I mean, who would y'all pick? Who's your favorite in the East?
I mean, right now I would say, I mean, it would be Dallas or Washington, but I mean, I don't want to.
So you think Dallas? I can tell by your tone. You think Dallas?
It's a 50-50.
Okay, you got a little confidence in your boys for once. Okay, I mean that's fine.
I like that. We got to improve our defense. We have to improve our
Look,
defense.
here's the thing.
If our defense is the same as it has been, then I'm saying Washington.
Here's the thing. I like Ron Rivera as a coach. That's one reason. They're the defending champions, and I don't see anybody that's gotten better. So no one's done anything to knock them off, and I don't trust Dallas. So, and you guys don't have enough. Your defense is going to be terrible again.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If our defense is the exact same and doesn't improve at all, I say Washington's the favorite. If we find a way to improve our defense, we have a chance to be in that discussion.
Honestly, it's probably the most interesting division I'm interested in watching because I want to see if all this money spent and all this capital they're putting into free agency for the Giants, if it pays off. Because to me, I don't think the Giants are that awful of a team. And if you get Saquon back healthy, plus you add Adoree if he can play decently, and you get Kenny Galladay who can be a receiver, I don't know. I mean,
they've still had offensive line issues too, though, that they need to fix.
I kind of like the Giants' ability to kind of be up and coming, but they haven't done enough, and they didn't do enough this year. I didn't see enough. I saw a step back from Daniel Jones. That's my biggest issue.
That was my thing too.
I love Daniel Jones.
He does not take care of the football very well.
I loved his rookie year. I thought, like, man, this kid's going to be good. Like, it ended up not being a bad pick from them, or maybe it was the second year, whatever his year before last was. And then this last year, it was like, what was that, man? You didn't progress. Now, he didn't have Saquon, and I agree. I was watching somebody talk about them.
More pressure on him.
I forgot that he missed basically the whole year, and that is a big upgrade and a guy that can bring something to your offense. But
yeah, because he catches the ball out of the backfield too.
I'm not sold enough on because of what I saw with Daniel Jones this year. I'm kind of like, now I don't know about him.
It's so funny how much he reminds me of Eli, just like in his mannerisms and the way he kind of just runs around aloof out there, Daniel Jones. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a very interesting year because there's been so much movement in free agency.
They're supposed to be getting Kyle Rudolph too.
Trav was talking about that.
With the Giants,
about that possible signing as well. But
something about some surgery on his foot maybe needed, and they were kind of hung up on maybe not getting that deal done for Kyle Rudolph. But that would be an improvement for their tight end position.
Kyle Rudolph.
The Giants are supposed to be getting Kyle Rudolph.
Okay.
So,
He's
exactly. It's kind of like an Orioles move, right? Signing a pitcher who was good 7 years ago.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm wearing this. It's slightly embarrassing.
Yeah, y'all know the O signed Felix Hernandez, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
With them.
He was the best pitcher in the game 10 years ago.
Hey, why did we sign a guy like that? Yeah, 8 years
Just
ago.
Just like Ubaldo. It's Ubaldo all over again, dude.
Well, no, Ubaldo wasn't that
old.
He was
never that good.
He was never that good. We did overpay. Sure. We overpaid for Ubaldo, but he had that nice 3 months where in that 1 year where he dominated, but then he was never any good. But
he had about 5 good games for us in his
we're getting off topic here.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting to see. Maybe we'll talk about some baseball at some point if it ever gets interesting. But
I'm sure towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean some
playoff.
Well, listen, the summer,
little spring training.
The summer gets a little bit boring once hockey and NBA finish. So we're gonna need something to talk about on our every couple weeks show. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what happens with all the movement that's happened in the NFL with free agency. I want to see what the Patriots are going to look like. I want to see what the new age Jameis Winston eating some dubs for the Saints, what that's going to look like. He might not be eating any dubs, and he might get benched for Taysom Hill. We'll find out. But it's going to be a very crazy year, and I know in my heart of hearts it's probably Ben's last year, so kind of watching that unfold as well. Hopefully in stadium once or twice. But yeah, I mean it's going to be crazy, and hopefully it'll be a full season, COVID free, and people can enjoy tailgating again and all that good stuff. But
the draft is the next thing to look at.
Yep.
That's the next interesting thing.
We'll be back in a few weeks for the draft as well. But our next show will be in 2 weeks. We're going to be off next week, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up the March Madness NCAA tournament. We'll call Trav out for Loyola losing this next week's Sweet 16 game here. But Sister Jean.
Yeah, I'm only saying they're getting through that bracket. I'm not saying they're winning it all.
Trav and Sister Jean can have a good cry together after they lose. But
how did I get branded tonight as a Loyola fan?
I don't know. And surprisingly enough, with Dan not being here, he's usually the one that likes to just throw fanhood on people if they say one good thing about him. But thank God he's not here to do that. But yeah, we will be back in 2 weeks. We're off next week, and we're gonna do a little Masters preview, so look for that as well. We're excited for that. Big golf fans here as well. We'll wrap up March Madness and then talk about some draft stuff and some combine stuff. So look for us in 2 weeks, hopefully back at our normal time. It might be on Mondays at that point. So just be looking out on Facebook and everywhere else on Instagram and stuff to see when we're going to be live. We might be switching to Mondays just due to some scheduling stuff. But look for us there, and we're glad you guys stopped by, and we'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Good one.